Google and Microsoft have done a fantastic job of capturing our world in 3D. In addition to using these 3D models in their mapping applications, they have also been used for games such as Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. The feeling of accuracy and realism that this lends to games is huge. But how can you get these same 3D models into your game or other 3D application? Well, that's what I'm here to show you. Over the next 15 minutes or so, I'll show you what software you need, how to set it up, and then how to download 3D data directly from Google Maps, ready for use in any 3D application you like. I'm Shane, and I've been teaching 3D art and game development for over 10 years. I'm both a lecturer and a YouTuber and love sharing what I know with the world. Hopefully you'll join me for this short class. If you do, links to everything you need are available in the supporting material for the class. See you in the next step. Let's jump into the tutorial then. So what I'm going to be doing is taking Wembley Stadium from Google Maps. Before we can get that though, we need to make sure that we have everything we will need, which is the following. You're going to need Unreal Engine, so either 4 or 5. I'm going to be using Unreal Engine 5. You will need Blender. You're going to need Google Chrome, an application called RenderDoc, and then a plugin for Blender called Maps Models Importer. All of the software that you need for this is free. Make sure you're using the same versions of the software as me to ensure that you get the same results as I do. Let's move on to step 1 then and get everything downloaded and installed. So if you don't already have it, installing Unreal Engine 5 is really straightforward. You need to open the Epic Games launcher. You'll see on the left hand side Unreal Engine listed. You can then go to the Unreal Engine tab at the top, and then you will see this screen which gives you the option to download the early access build of Unreal Engine 5, and that's all there is to that. So get that one installing, and then we can move on to installing Blender. Installing Blender's pretty straightforward. I start with googling download Blender. That takes me to the blender.org website where I can click the download button, and that will start it downloading. Once it's done downloading, click on the file and then go through the process of installing it. I can't install it again, so I'll just click on repair, and when it's done you'll be told that it's successful, and that's that one done. Let's move on. Next up, we need to download and install an application called RenderDoc, and this is what we actually use to extract the 3D model data from maps using Chrome. So if we go to the renderdoc.org website, which is linked in the description for you, we need to just click below the download button on the other builds link, and then just scroll down to the all stable builds section, and you want to make sure you get the same version as me, which is going to be version 1.9. I'm getting the 64-bit version. There is also a 32-bit version, and I'm getting the installer version so that I can just set it up pretty easily. Once you've finished downloading it, just run the installer. It's a pretty basic installer, and then I chose to do a complete installation. And that's all you need to do for this one. Once that's installed, you're almost ready to go. We just need to install the plugin for Blender, which we'll do now. The plugin that we need is called Maps Models Importer. To download it, you'll just need to scroll down the page a little bit to the installation section and click on the release link there. I've just taken the one that's at the top, so if you just click on the link there, it will take you to the page where you can download it, and there's the zip file there under the assets section. Once you've downloaded it, you'll just need to get it installed. In order to do that, you need to first of all open Blender, have a look in the edit menu, find preferences and open that up. By default, it's opened up for me on the add-ons section. In that section, there's an install button to click. Find the zip file that you've just downloaded, and then install it. It should install without any problems, but if you want to check that it did, you can search for it using the search functionality in this window, and it will show up, and it should have a tick in the box to show that it's also active. Assuming that's all good, you're ready to move on, and we've got everything that we need. I'm not going to take you through the process of installing Google Chrome, because if you can't do that by yourself, there's not really much hope for you, and you're on your own. Okay then, now that we have everything that we need, it's the moment of truth. We're going to start getting this data from Google Maps. You can see that I'm on my desktop. It's really important that you don't have any of the applications open when we start this, especially Google Chrome, because it won't work if you do. So the first thing that I want to do then is open RenderDoc. So we'll get that open first. You can see that it's one of my recently added applications, so we'll get that open. I don't want to update it because I specifically want the version I've got. And then we can just ignore that for now, but we'll come back to it in a second. Now, the next thing we need to do is open Google Chrome, but we've got to do it in a very specific way for this process to work. And the way that we're going to do it is through command prompt. So I'm just going to open my Windows launcher and type CMD, and there's command prompt. And this is what we need, because we need to input some additional instructions when we open Google Chrome. And I'll show you what they are. So the first thing that we need to type in here is this: set renderdoc hook EGL 0. And that just gets the renderdoc plugin ready to work. So we'll just press enter on that. And then the next thing we need to do is get this text here. So this first part is where the Chrome application is installed to. This is a default location for me, so it's probably going to be the same for you. But if it's not, this is the bit that you need to update. And then you've got these two instructions: disable the GPU sandbox, and we also want a startup dialog, which you'll see in a minute. I will make sure that both of these lines of text are available, so you can just copy and paste them in if you want, because it saves time. I just copied and pasted them in. Why would you waste time? So let's press enter on that. So it does this, but the bit that we're looking for, let's just find it, is this: GPU starting with PID, which I think is process ID, and it gives you a number. That's the bit that we need to see, 1264. It will be a different number for you, and it's a different number every time. So 1264, we go back to renderdoc, and then we go to File, Inject into Process. And then we search for that process, 1264. There it is, Chrome. And this is the GPU. So we want this application to be able to listen to what's happening on the GPU to kind of extract the data. It's very clever. Okay, so we click on that, and then the little inject button is down here. We give it a click. Brilliant. That's a good start, hopefully. Now what we're going to do is go here, click on OK, and you can see that this is now linked. It's established, and it sees the API for me as Direct3D 11. So that's all good. So now we go to Chrome, and we can see that it's worked because it adds some extra text up here. If you don't see that, the process is not going to work. Assuming you do see that, you can now go to Google Maps. Okay, so I'm going to go to Wembley Stadium, and we need to get the 3D data on there. So I'm just going to go down here to Layers and click on Satellite. And if you're not seeing the 3D geometry, just click on More and click on Globe View here. That makes it 3D. To check that it's 3D, hold your Control button. And as you then left click and mouse around, you can see that we've got some 3D geometry here. That's brilliant. And what you will need to do is, if you zoom in on your target, which in my case is Wembley Stadium, you'll see that it kind of implements its own level of detail. So what you'll want to do is just zoom in on things and make sure that it loads in the highest level of detail. Just scroll around, make sure you're getting really close. You can see that better textures pop in. Really try your best to get as much detail to come in as you can. And there you go, look, they pop in. I don't think that crane's going to get any better. But it's worth spending a couple of minutes. I'm going to rush this because I'm just doing it for the video, but spend a couple of minutes getting the higher quality versions of these models to load in, and you'll get a better result. Then what you want to do is zoom out a little bit. Don't zoom out too far. We don't want the lower quality versions of the models to load in. And then just go top down on the thing that you want to save, which for me is the stadium. That's what I'm going for. And then leave it there for now. We're now going to just bring the renderdoc window back. And I recommend putting a delay on this. I'm going to put 5 seconds in because I need to switch windows and start it moving. The window that's displaying Google Maps needs to be moving when it does the capture, and then the GPU gets all the data you want. So I'll put 5 seconds in there. I'm going to click on the capture after delay button like that, and then we go back into Maps quickly, and I just click and drag and start moving. You'll see a little bit of lag when it captures, just there. And then we go back to renderdoc. And you should see this. That means it's worked, basically, as long as you've got one of those. It's going to be 122 megabytes. Happy flipping days. Right, so assuming you've got that, that means you've now extracted the data from Google Maps, and we just need to save it as something else. So we're going to right click on here, save, and I'll give it a name, Wembley. And I'm putting it on my desktop for being able to find it easily, and then click on save. Okay, that's that step done then. In the next step, we're going to import that into Blender. So make sure you open Blender. Okay, we'll get rid of the default cube. We also don't need that. Right, what we're going to do now is go to File, Import, and because we've added the plugin, Google Maps Capture is listed here. So we'll click on that, go to Desktop, and there's the Wembley file that I've saved. And then once you've found it, you click on Import Google Maps, and it might take up to about a minute for this to import. There we go then, mine has just finished importing, didn't take quite a minute, and if we zoom in on it, you can see that the geometry has come in pretty nicely. You can see that it is recognisably what we just were viewing on Google Maps, and what's really cool about this as well is that if we just click up here to turn on shading, it also brings with it the textures. So this looks pretty darn nifty, I think. Unfortunately, the geometry is made up of multiple pieces, generally set into grid squares, which is clearly how Google Maps works. And the geometry is not the tidiest, but that is now ready for us to export out of Blender. So let's do that. We're going to go to File, let me just deselect, File, Export, and we're going to choose FBX, which is something that we know Unreal Engine likes to work with. So I'm going to make sure that I'm putting it on the desktop again for the ease of finding it, and we'll just call this Wembley again. Wembley. There we go. And we'll export it. And that, my friends, is so far so good. The next step involves getting it into the engine, so we'll take a look at that now. Okay then, so here we are in a new Unreal Engine project. So I'm in Unreal Engine 5, pretty straightforward stuff this, and it's just a project that I've created for the purposes of showing you this. So you can see you've got your real default third person view. So let's look at how we import this then. I'm just going to make a folder for it, so let's create a new folder. We're just going to call it Maps Import, and we'll open that up. And then in this folder we'll click on the Import button. Let's go to our desktop, and there's Wembley. So let's click on Open. Now there's a few things that we really need to make sure we do on this. It is made up of multiple meshes, and we need to make sure that these are combined, otherwise things are going to be really messy. So let's click on Combine Meshes. That's really going to help. Then what we want to do is just scroll down to where the materials are, and we do want it to create new materials, and we do want it to import textures. That's all pretty good. So now what we do is just click on Import. So when it imports, you will see that there are some warnings, but nothing that's going to break what we want to do. So we can close that window, like so. And then this one here should be the mesh. You can see one of the problems with this though, let's just expand this, is that it does import a buttload of textures, which is a little bit upsetting. And it also adds a hell of a lot of materials as well. There are ways to tidy this up. I would do that in Maya, and I would bake maps. I might even use Substance Painter to help me with it. If you're interested in seeing how I do that so that I turn it into one mesh, use one texture and one material, leave me a comment down below and we'll have a look at that. What we want to do though is just find that mesh again. There it is. And we're just going to drop that into our level. Lovely. You can see that at the moment we can't see any of the textures on there. Oh, some are popping in actually, because it's currently compiling the shaders. And you can see that there's obviously an issue with the scale as well. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move it out there, and let's scale it up by, let's go 100 times. Like that. And this might still be too small. And also, 0 is not in the right place. Let's just do what we can with it. So we're just going to try and get the height about right, and we're going to move it out into the distance a little bit. So what I'm kind of looking for is to be able to see this environment from within the level, kind of poking out over the top if you're the player. So you can see that that's a little bit too low. That should do it. And I think the scale might not be bad now actually. I've done it by 100. It might need to be a little bit more than that. But if we were to play... Oh. We do have an issue. It's created collisions, which is a problem for us, because our player's getting stuck on the collisions. So we might just need to turn that off. So we'll just open up the static mesh editor. And then if you search for collisions up at the top here, you can go for collisions preset, and I'm just going to go for no collision. That will help. Brilliant. And then we'll save that. And we can close that, and then we'll just try again to see what it looks like from inside. Okay, yes, so we now do get this impression that there is some geometry off in the background, which I think is a pretty neat trick. So you can see there are a few issues with it. It does work better from above, which is what it's kind of designed for, really. And there are some issues like Z-Fi, and as I say, that is all solvable stuff. And you can get in quite close on it, and for the most part, the geometry holds up pretty well. And that's it. You have taken geometry and textures from Google Maps, and you have got it set up and working in Unreal Engine 5. Well done, you. Hopefully you found this class helpful and learned a lot along the way. If you did, then I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a review. I'm still new to Skillshare, and positive reviews like yours can really help me to get discovered and in turn be able to help more people to learn the skills they need to get into making games. Thanks so much for completing this class with me, and I really hope I'll see you again in the future.